Dear colleagues, Ministry of Defense spokesperson Mr. Vilyen Pidgornyy will speak on Russian military aggression in eastern Ukraine. Mr. Pidgornyy, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you a weekly update on the events in the military conflict and Russian aggression in eastern Ukraine between November 7th and 13th. Ukrainian troops captured the Russian military drone close to Melekina village, Mariupol sector on November 6th. The Orlan 10 drone is one of the core drones of the Russian armed forces, designed by the Special Technological Center based in St. Petersburg, Russian Federation. The drone took off from the Russian territory in Yeysk city, Rostov region. Its hard drive contained more than 500 photos with reconnaissance data gathered between August 20th and November 6th. Russian regulars and its proxies used the drone at least 4 times to identify and direct artillery fire at Ukrainian positions in the Mariupol sector. You can follow the map to see the launching site of the drone in Russia, its flight trajectory through the Taganrog Bay, and areas of drone pictures stretching from Mariupol and Vinogradny village on the Azov Sea coast all the way to Makedonivka village on August 20th. Another piece of information revealed that the drone gathered data in the vicinity of Talakivka, Sartana, Berdyanske, and Pionerske villages on October 3rd. 7 days later, the drone was active in the area of Shirokine and other towns and villages on the Azov Sea coast. Apparently, Russia-backed militants used the drone's information gathered on October 10th to open fire at Ukrainian troops from mortars and artillery in the area of Shirokine, Vodyane, and Talakivka, firing over 215 shells. That day, 2 Ukrainian servicemen were killed in action and 6 were wounded in action. The data obtained from the Russian drone is illustrative. It basically proves that Russia is directly complicit in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The Kremlin supplies its proxies in eastern Ukraine with weapons and manpower and launches drones from its own soil to supply the militants with data to attack Ukrainian troops. Russia-backed militants kept on violating ceasefire on a daily basis across the whole front line. Overall, the number of hostile attacks registered was between 35 on November 10th at the lowest point and up to 64 on November 12th at its highest. Russian proxy contingent continued to use heavy weapons banned by Minsk agreements, especially 82mm and 120mm mortars, 120 and 152mm artillery, as well as tanks. The vast majority of ceasefire violations took place in the Mariupol sector, stretching from Mariinka and Krasnogorivka all the way to Talakivka and Shirokina village on the Azov Sea coast. Donetsk sector remains one of the tensest areas. Avdiivka, Gorlivka perimeter, and Luhansk village were all major flashpoints with militants firing from mortars and artillery throughout last week. In the Luhansk sector, the geography of ceasefire violations has expanded. Tensions persisted in the area of Stanitsa Luhanska, Shastya, Krymske, and Popasna, including Novozvanivka and Novoalexandrivka villages. Ukraine's military intelligence reports of casualties among Russian proxies. The total number is 15 militants killed in action and 16 wounded in action. The so-called 9th Regiment, 11th Regiment, and the 7th Brigade suffered most casualties in the Mariupol sector, Avdiivka industrial area, and Luhansk sector, respectively. Militant artillerymen in the Luhansk sector suffered some heavy losses as well. As you can see, the militants suffer casualties in major flashpoints on the front line, where their Russian command attempts to provoke further escalation of the conflict. Last week, 4 Ukrainian servicemen were killed in action. 19 were wounded in action. It should be noted that the total number of military casualties includes 1 Ukrainian serviceman who was killed in a booby trap explosion. Our hearts go out to the friends and families of the fallen Ukrainian heroes. 2 civilians were killed and 4 were wounded last week due to hostile attacks in eastern Ukraine. Russian-backed militants used artillery to attack villages on the frontline territories. 1 civilian was killed in Novhorodsky village and another in Tonenki village, both in the Donetsk sector. The latter attack completely ruined the local agriculture enterprise and damaged gas and water supply lines, as well as 2 buses and a tractor. 3 civilians were injured as a result of militant artillery shelling in Verkhnyotoretsky and Mariinka. 1 more civilian was injured as a result of an improvised explosive ordnance explosion next to Zolote, Luhansk sector. 23 private homes and non-residential buildings were damaged as a result of militant attacks in Popasna, Luhansk sector, Toretsk, Avdiivka in the Donetsk sector, and Krasnogorivka and Mariinka, Mariupol sector. In the latter 2 towns, the buildings were caught on fire. Evidence of these gross attacks were recorded by Ukrainian representatives of the Joint Center for Coordination and Control, who transferred the data to the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. These attacks on civilian infrastructure demonstrate grave violations of Minsk Accords and fundamental human rights. A civilian locomotive was hit by militant attack. We also want to reiterate that Russia-backed militants target energy supply lines, depriving civilians in frontline areas of basic services. Over the week, Ukrainian authorities arranged for access and safe passage through the government checkpoints on the contact line of 88 trucks loaded with humanitarian aid for civilians living in the occupied territories of eastern Ukraine. The total payload of aid exceeds 1,677 tons. It includes food, hygiene products, construction materials, medical supplies, and equipment. Humanitarian assistance was provided by the International Committee of the Red Cross, as well as by the Ukrainian and foreign charity organizations. That's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pidgornyy. Looking forward to seeing you here next Monday.
Thank you.